we're up to day 21 in our readings in Ruth. Today we're looking at Ruth chapter 4 verses 7 to 10. And because some of you have Farsi as your first language, Mehdi here is going to read that passage in Farsi first.
سلام، من مهدی هستم و با خوندن کتاب رود فصل 4 آیات 7 تا 10. در ایام قدیم رسم بازخرید و مبادله در اسرائیل این بود که برای رسمیت بخشیدن به هر چیز شخص کفش خود را از پا به در می کرد و آن را به شخص دیگر می داد. این بود روش گواهی دادن در اسرائیل. پس آن ولی به بوعز گفت تو آن را برای خود بخر و کفش از پا به در آورد. آنگاه بوعز به مشایخ و همه قوم گفت امروز شما شاهدید که من تمامی مایملک علیملک و تمامی مایملک کلیون و محلون را از دست نعومی خریدم. همچنین روت موآبی بیوه محلون را نیز به زنی خود گرفتم تا نام آن را در گذشته را بر میراث وی باقی نگاه دارم تا نام او از میان برادرانش و از دروازه شهرش محو نگردد. امروز شما شاهد باشید.
Thank you, Mehdi. Now, for those of you who would prefer to hear it in English, we're picking it up at verse 7. Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are witnesses." We're in for a dramatic end to this fascinating little book. Naomi's closest relative has just turned down the right to buy her land, and so the opportunity has opened up for our hero Boaz. This means that Ruth and Boaz might finally get together. But in order to now seal the deal, a particular Israelite legal custom has to take place. The closest relative must remove their sandal and pass it on to the new redeemer to wear. As Christopher Ashe explains, one person was forgoing their right to step on the land, while the other was stepping into their shoes and taking on the land. Once he's done this, Boaz can say that he's acquired all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. And that's all that belonged to Naomi's dead husband and 2 sons. Notice though what Boaz then emphasizes. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Why has Boaz willingly taken on the cost of caring for this family? Why has he shown such extraordinary kindness? He tells us that's in order that Elimelech's name will not disappear, but will continue to be associated with this land. In fact, some translations helpfully draw out the language of inheritance here. For example, the New Revised Standard Version reads, "To maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance." Staggeringly, Boaz's commitment stretches back beyond Ruth to Naomi's dead husband, Elimelech. Why does it matter that Elimelech's land is passed on in his name? Land is very significant in the book of Ruth, but we sometimes miss this as 21st century Christians. Possessing land in Israel meant having a share in God's promises and blessing. After all, it was this land of blessing that had been first promised to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, before being divided between tribes and family clans in Joshua chapters 13 to 21. Everlasting life in God's kingdom also seems to be symbolically demonstrated in the Old Testament by a family line continuing to be associated with that land. Therefore, losing land or having your name disassociated from the land was a sign of being cut off from God's blessing. Yet, devastatingly, this is what had happened to Elimelech and his sons. So it's a measure of Boaz's selfless kindness that he acts to re-include Elimelech's name. Rather than doing as he saw fit, like many in Israel at that time, Boaz instead honors God by serving his fellow Israelite. As the Bible unfolds, we see more clearly that God's inheritance is not simply land, it's God himself, come to dwell with them, our portion forever. But how do we receive this inheritance? At the cross, Jesus, our Boaz-like Redeemer, steps into our shoes, pays our debt, and gives us all that he has. As we turn and trust in him, we become bound up with him and his name. As we marvel at Boaz's generosity, consider whose name you're seeking to maintain this Christmas. Are you moved by God's generosity to bless others? Rejoice in a Redeemer that includes us in his inheritance, and pray that you might seek to make much of his name.